Hi everyone. On this episode, I had the privilege of speaking with Evidence Egwuono Adjarho, a remarkable 22-year-old Nigerian literary and visual storyteller. Evidence on this episode was able to share her experience and the journey that has led her into the book reviewing world, which began as a passion for storytelling and critical thinking. She started sharing her reviews on social media to engage a wider audience and contribute to the literary space. From there, she has been able to earn significant recognition for her work, including winning the 2024 Afro Critic Prize for Criticism, a testament to her significant and insightful as well as thought-provoking reviews. She has also been nominated for the Pushcart Prize, further cementing her reputation in the literary world. Currently, she's a final year student of the University of Lagos. She's also the founder of a literary community growing currently at the University of Lagos, which seeks to foster dialogue, collaboration, and come to enhance the love for literature among young Nigerians. Throughout our conversation, you get to see the passion she brings to the table in and about she trying to talk about the problems Nigeria currently face from the prices of books, how she tries to source out for her books, and how she gets to go about living her life as a young Nigerian, passionate about reading, but yet challenged by the system and the policies that ordinarily has come to be our country, Nigeria. From the conversations we were able to have, you get to see the passion she carries, and you get to see this also in her eyes and the way she get to speak. We spent some time talking about gender-based criticism and ways in which society continues to stereotype women going forward and fixing them into boxes that ordinarily don't fit what they ordinarily should be in the 21st century. The conversation spanned from different conversations from the books she's reviewed, with particular emphasis on the Nigerian author Michael Chukwudera's Lost is an Aftertaste of Memories. You get to see the unconventional style this young woman of many dreams get to talk about and how she tries to champion this stuff. I now present to you our conversations in full for your listening pleasure. Today on Boring Conversations, I'm excited to introduce a guest who is deeply connected to the world of storytelling, especially in the context of Nigerian literature and as it concerns its relation with African literature and in relation also with the global world. I'm here with someone you'll find interesting and you'll get to know in a bit. She's a writer and a visual storyteller who uses both words and images to, bring attention to stories that really matter. She writes about things that concern women, which is ordinarily something everybody should care about in the 21st century, where up until now, women are still being subjugated and being relegated almost to the backside, as opposed to what we ordinarily should be doing in the 21st century, where we ordinarily should be talking about emancipation of everybody and getting to allow everybody flourish. As a writer, she is a knack for digging into, heart of things. She digs into the heart of things, and whether it's about her personal stuff or the way she goes about her honest reviews, she's not afraid to overthink things and bring that critical eye to everything that, she gets to write about. But that's not all about her. She is also she's an award-winning literary critic of a whole lot of things, the likes of Afro Critic, which she won last year for her literary criticism, and a whole lot of other things. In a country like Nigeria, where a whole lot of persons at the moment are finding it difficult to get to engage in reading, more so also engage in writing, we have someone here with us who ordinarily understands what it means to really, really want to write and really want to tell her story. And for her age, ordinarily one might say, okay, she's quite on time. But in a country like Nigeria, where it is very difficult to find books. Not just find books, it is still very difficult to buy books. You'll get to hear her story of how she breaks her bank account just to ordinarily see to it that writing is a thing that ordinarily gets the attention it needs to get. From different reviews she's done over the years and from she getting to write, we will be engaging with her and she's going to tell us her journey so far and how she has come to fare and what writing at the moment is in Nigeria, what literature is in Nigeria after many years of the likes of Chinua Achebe, Wole Soyinka, and the different persons that have come down there from Oken Dibe to Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, an author we all get to revere and get to admire. We can't wait for her to get to publish her book, Dream Count, in March. It's a thing also we would touch down there. And without further ado, I give you my guest for today. She's going to do the introduction of herself. Welcome to Boring Conversations.
Thank you so much, Obina. I really do not know what to say because you've done my introduction for me. You said most of everything I would have said. Thank you so much for that introduction. At a point I was wondering whether you were still talking about me or someone else. Well, thank you so much. I'm Evidence Egwuono Adjarho. I like to think of myself as a visual storyteller and literary storyteller. Literary storyteller because I write, and I write. When I think of literary storytelling, I think of the essays I write, but I also think of my reviews. I think of writing criticisms about books because there's one thing to write, and it's the job of the critic to bring out those things, those essential parts that you might not necessarily see, to open windows into a single book, to bring it up for different interpretations. So yeah, that's me being a literary storyteller. And then as a visual storyteller, I like to think of myself as I would say a media enthusiast because I'm not so grounded, but I like to tell stories. I like to tell stories of women, and my journey as a youth researcher has opened my eyes to lots of stories that do not get enough attention on media. So it's my dream, it's my wish, and it definitely is going to come to fruition to be able to tell stories of women and children, especially young females that are would I say that the society has relegated to a particular corner, whose stories we do not hear of as often as we should. Their stories are very important. So I like to think of myself as a visual storyteller as well. I'm currently a final year student at the University of Lagos. I'm studying English.
Oh,
I
sure.
think it's not anything though. ASU strike has done a lot. I should be done. Should have been done with school 2 years ago, but I'm still in school. Yes. So I think that my choice of study English opened my eyes to a lot of things. If I had not studied English, I'm not sure I would be this person right now. Maybe I'll be in the studio singing.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I think that's it, basically.
Okay. We've heard from Evidence herself. She's been able to give us a wrap of ordinarily what she does and what she gets to find passion for. But what if we were to start this particular conversation? You talked about you telling the stories of women. I don't know if you're familiar with the recent happenings in Anambra as it concerns the woman that was set ablaze by her husband.
Yes, it reminded me of these athletes whose I think boyfriend also killed her. I think she was set ablaze by her boyfriend too. These stories are just really depressing. Sometimes I just read and then I'm wishing, why did I see it? But then I realize that these stories need to be told, no matter how different, because these are realities of people, these are realities of women. So in as much as we say, oh my God, it's so depressing, it's traumatizing, we have to see these stories. These stories have to come to the limelight to get. So yeah, I saw it.
Like, how often do you get to experience this as a researcher? Because from my own end, I know it's a very common phenomenon. People don't really want to admit, domestic violence and the violence against women. And people try to tie it to things like anger, things like, she made me angry. I was listening to the interview when the man was being interviewed, like the man in Anambra, and there were a whole lot of stuff that came up. I also saw on the internet when people were saying she's a cheater, she's this, she's that, just this subtle way of not ordinarily pronouncing what they want to say, but also just trying to tell people that, there's this danger to the single story. Let's not just listen to why the woman is now dead. Let us also see the wrong in which in the events that also led to that, as to probably she being a wife, she being a cheat, she being this, she being that. It's to me, I don't know about you, I believe we share the same stuff here. It's not justifiable. You cannot take someone's life because you think someone is cheating or whatsoever the story you are now cooking up as it concerns the current event of things. I think the worst comes to the worst, you get to live the relationship. Chimamanda, whom we get to admire so much, also will get to tell us in her feminist manifestos. You get to hear in one particular part, she talked about marriage not being an achievement, in as much as it doesn't bring about happiness. So if something is not working, it is my belief that such a person should be able to say, I don't want this stuff again, than to kill this woman. She's no longer here. What do we do? How often do you hear such stories that involve women being abused, women being beaten? I lived for a short period in Lagos, and I know what ordinarily happens in the suburbs, like not necessarily in the island, but when you go to places like Ajegule or you go to places like Mafuluku, you get to hear stories that leave you in constant trauma. It brings about this kind of generational neurosis that leaves you thinking over and over and over again, as it concerns what ordinarily would make a man lift his hand against a woman.
The stories are everywhere, and it depends on what I'm doing. Sometimes I'm scrolling through Twitter or Instagram, especially Twitter. Scrolling through Twitter and I'm seeing these stories. But I had the most lasting experience when I went out. I went to a friend of mine. There's this thing they call teaching practice. It's just like IT. So I
Like
went to the school.
like
Sorry?
for College of Education students, sorry.
Yeah, but they also do it in universities. So I went to the school that I was supposed to, the school was posted to, and it kept telling me that there's this particular girl. It wants me to speak with her. I did not know what it was about until I spoke with her. We had a conversation, a very, very deep and honest conversation. This girl, she's not more than 12. And she was telling me, she narrated her life experiences to me, and she told me how she lost her parents and then had to stay with an auntie who moved out to, these people that sell drinks on highways. So she had to move out to a particular woman who the girl did not know. They are not related. She moved out, kind of like, I don't want to call it slavery, but when I don't even know what to call it, but maybe domestic slavery. So this aunt of ours moved out to this woman's place, and then she was staying with her. She would eat only once in a day sometimes.
So the story that happened in Anambra, a woman being set ablaze, how often as a researcher do you get to encounter domestic abuse, and how proud are people, or how open are people in getting to express themselves as it concerns the events that happen in their life? Do they go quiet, or do they wait until, like things that happen to someone like Osinachi, the Ekweme Krona, God rest her soul, and the many women that this type of stuff get to happen? Do people wait until the situation gets so bad, and then we now say, oh, rest in peace, had I known, if you were alive, we would have been able to? Or are people open enough to talk about their problems in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you so much. So I would start with saying that my research is limited in scope. So what we are doing is we are trying to get data to show that young female creatives they face gender-based marginalization in Africa's creative sector. Yeah, that's what my project encompasses. But during the process of interviewing young female creatives, I realized that there are different kind of people. Really, there are some that would come out openly to say that in as much as the project was about gender-based marginalization, we still have, I mean, you cannot separate the woman's experience from the creative experience and the woman. They are like together, right? So these things are still going
Yeah,
to
yeah.
intersect, right? So during a particular interview I was having with a particular interviewee, she spoke about how that she has to face so many things in the creative sector. And then even as a woman, there are so many obstacles, barriers, challenges that she has to go through. And then she says that she's outspoken, she speaks out, but it doesn't change anything really. It doesn't really change. In fact, when you speak out, people begin to they label you as, she even told me that she got fired, she got kicked out from her place of work at the time. So really, these stories are everywhere, right? And it doesn't even matter whether you speak out or not. The question to ask is whether you get the right, whether you're speaking out will really do anything. Because sometimes it's when you're saying, oh, I'm facing microaggression or sexual harassment, when it doesn't get to the peak, most times it's likely that you are going to be ignored. Somebody will just tell you, why you overreacting, or you are being too dramatic because you're a woman, you're being too dramatic. Oh, that's how women are. She's just being overly dramatic. So the question is not even whether speaking out or not does anything. Whether you're speaking out or not is whether you're speaking out does anything. And in the end, you see that it doesn't unless it gets to this critical point. And especially not in Nigeria, where almost everything is messed up. You cannot even reach when it's an emergency. You cannot reach people that you're supposed to reach on time. But even if you reach them, the problem is now them getting to you on time. So there are just these many factors to consider, and I just think that most times when we see that women come out to speak up and they were saying, why did she not speak up earlier? You can't be sure that that person hasn't spoken up earlier. I mean, she might have spoken up and then they'll just sweep our case under the carpet. So I think that
Yeah.
that is really what one should consider.
Yeah, because the case in Anambra, there had been a time where, according to the interviews being circulated now on the internet, that the woman had cried out saying, this man had said at a point, I would set you ablaze, and it didn't happen. Then she cried out. She told different persons different stuff. I don't know how well they took it, but it's very,
Obviously, the
very, it's
serious.
very, very, yeah, it's very, very unfortunate that, in the 21st century, somebody would say, anger made me take fuel and pour on someone, and then got a light, and then it was lit, and now the woman in question is dead. And but we have to have hope. What do you expect in the coming years? What are your dreams and aspirations as it concerns setting the record straight? Because James Baldwin once said, we cannot afford despair. If we afford despair, what are we going to tell to our children? You, as a young woman growing up with aspirations and dreams, what are your dreams and your visions as it concerns what affects women, from the little research you've done and from what things have from what you've been able to see, regardless of whether you think at the moment things are changing or people are being heard? What are the things you think can be set in place to make sure that things work well? Because we cannot continue like this.
That is a question. But basically, for women in Nigeria, Africa, society at large, I think everything would be better if we just let women be. She's a girl, just let her be a girl. She's a woman, just let her be a woman. You do not have to. It's when society starts placing boxes, expectations, that's when the problem starts to happen. Because I'm a girl, you hear something like, oh, you're supposed to do this, you're not supposed to do that. And then when you don't do it, it feels like you're breaking a rule. Meanwhile, society sets that rule. That rule is not innate, it's not God given, it's just society. Society sets it. So that's why you hear something like the woman is supposed to be subservient to the man. I'm a Christian. Bible says husband and wife, not man and woman. But you know how people they just like to paint narratives that suits their agenda. So they tell you the woman is supposed to be subservient to the man. And that is wrong. So that is when you see these cases happen where the woman, she's been too rude. So I give her a slap. She's been too rude. She's not behaving as a woman should behave. She's not behaving like a girl should behave. So these are really the things to consider. Honestly, if we can just don't set don't put people in boxes. Don't do it. Don't box people. Let me express myself however I want to. Do not look at me and the first thing you hear is, or when you see me, the first thing is she's weaker. So you can do whatever you want because she cannot protect herself enough. Or there's even this narrative that people say that the woman needs a man to protect her, the woman needs a man to fight for her, the woman needs a those things. When I hear it, it just gets me really pissed. And then it's coming from people that, especially when it's coming from people that are well read. In my head, I'm like, what are you reading? Are you reading the back of the book? Or because if you are well read, you should be enlightened enough and not say this kind of thing. So really, just a society where my dreams, my hopes, my aspiration is that in coming years, I'm not worried that my sister is not safe because someone out there is thinking that she's not following standards, she's not following the rules. So because she's proven to be stubborn, they have to teach her. They have to what's the word? They have to I can't
Tame
think
her,
of.
like,
Yes, they have to tame her because she's not behaving too girly. She's not behaving as a woman should behave. She's not behaving as a lady should behave. So they need to tame her. And that's where you now see all the beating and everything. That's where most of domestic violence, that's where it comes into place when they say, oh, you're already growing wings, Abby. I'm going to help you bring down that ring. So I really hope that we have a society where women are just allowed to express themselves however they want to, in whatever way they choose to.
it's quite unfortunate. I say this, and these are things we ordinarily shouldn't, ordinarily like be smiling at, but it's too sad that we still live in such times. While I was living in Lagos, also in Calabar, and then in Abuja, I ordinarily go for walks in the evening, right? And it has continued with me even right now in my current residence. I find myself taking walks in the night, but my friends get to ask me, my female friends, they're like, how are you able to, comfortably walk out the times you get to walk out? And we're talking about a place where ordinarily should be very, very civilized, where we should be talking about security and top-notch protection of all gender. You still get to see this fear. You get to see this fear that, people cannot really comfortably say, okay, as a girl, I want to go to a party. I don't need a man to accompany me. I want to go alone. I don't even want to go with friends. I want to go the same way Obinna can go
Can
for
go.
a party alone. That is, if I go for parties, go alone and not fear that around 2, 3 a.m. in the morning I can go home on my own with no fear. And many persons want to push these things down and say, it doesn't really exist. It's only in Africa and developing countries and continents. But no, even right at the center of a place like America, a place like Europe as a continent, you still find these difficulties down there. And there's no better way of saying it than the way you said it. Just allow women be, dear people of the world, men and women alike, just let women be. And I say this also to women because sometimes women are the ones championing this particular stuff. Women, allow your fellow women be. The fact that you ordinarily had it tough while growing up doesn't necessarily mean it must be meted out upon your daughters and upon your children. Just allow girls and women be. Can we just do that?
For the women who behave as uneducated men would behave towards their fellow women, I would still say that it's society. If you grow up in a place where they tell you that A is A and A is not B, you definitely transfer that knowledge to your upcoming whatever. You are going to transfer that knowledge. So for women who behave the way they do, I still think the societal norms, conventions, and everything that is affecting them. So they really need to deconstruct those thinkings. They need to do away with it.
Sure,
Just
sure,
thought to add that.
sure. yeah, it's very important that you get to add that. But if we were to like shift a bit from here back to you being a critic and you being a reviewer, how did this start? Have you always wanted to do this? Is it because you're currently studying what you're studying in uni? Is it because of COVID? No, COVID brought out a whole lot of talent and dreams for people. Somebody would tell you, I used to do this, but when COVID happened, I had to face myself. And I'm like, okay, now I can become a writer, I can become a content creator. So you find people reference COVID a lot as to how their life stopped and then a new thing was discovered in the silence of them staying with themselves and stuff like that. Was it COVID or is this something you've always wanted to do?
It wasn't COVID. It was, in fact, when I got to school, when I get admission to school in 2019 and we resumed 2020, I did not even know what I was going to do with my life at the time. I wanted to study law, and because my JAM score was not what I wanted, I just decided to switch back to English. I had wanted to study English. When I got to senior secondary school, my government teacher was like, "Oh, you're good at government, just study law." So I went with him, and then I realized that in the end, let me just go for what I wanted in the first place. So I went to English, and I like to say that when I got to school, I forgot that I knew how to write. I completely, in fact, I was so distracted. I did not know what I was doing at the time. I just forgot that I knew how to write. Me, I used to write books, or I used to write stories on those 40 lives exercise books. I forgot
Yeah,
totally, and
yeah.
COVID did not help. In fact, COVID, I was doing something else. I ventured into business, into entrepreneurship, and it was just pressure. Yes. So COVID time I forgot. It wasn't until 2022 that I knew that I needed to start. I needed to start writing again. 2022. That's like 2 years after uni. Inside. So partly because of what I'm studying, I realized that, especially when we got introduced to African literature, I did not grow up reading African literature. Yeah, I grew up reading European literature. So I even had the idea, the notion that African literature is not as good as Western literature. So when we got introduced to a particular course, I think African literature, that was when I discovered that, yes, this is what I want to do. And my course allows for critical thinking a lot, because you read novels and you write analysis on the novels. So I'm like, okay,
Sure.
I like what I'm doing. Let me just extend it. I don't have to box it to academics. I can extend it to other aspects. And then I decided to start reading
Yeah.
African literature and writing reviews. I started writing reviews in 20 full time in 2023. That's when I started full time. And then I discovered that I'm not bad, because I would post on Instagram trying to review a book. And then people's comments on that is like, "Oh, I like this. This is so good." And then I decided, okay, let me just put in my knowledge from school to my book reviews. And that's how I'm here. So it wasn't like, yeah, it was what I wanted to do. That always been what I wanted to do, was just circumstances. And I like it. I mean, I'm enjoying it so far. It just allows you to think inside and outside of the box, connect everything that you can to what you're writing. So yeah, that's it.
Wow, you live in Nigeria. It was much more easier for you to find foreign books than it was for you to find books about Nigeria and about Africa. Was it because of the family you come from or the bookshops you go to, you get to see books that are non-African, or just your taste was just for stuffs across the global south?
Okay, growing up, my brother used to have these books. My older brother had these recommended books from school. It bring them home, Oliver Twist, lots of these classic books. And out of curiosity, I would read those books. And he also had a friend who was studying medicine at the time. And that friend used to bring lots of novels relating to, I don't know if you know this author, but Dean Koontz. He used to bring lots of his novels. So my brother would not read them. He just dumps them in his bookshelf. So I have a twin sister, by the way. Both of us will just take those books and start setting reading challenges. I'm going to finish. Oh, we would finish over 400 pages in one day. It was crazy, but that was it. That was basically how we got exposed to these books. And then I thought in my head at that time that Dean Koontz was the best author ever. So when people used to talk about African literature, I'm like, no, I'm not cut out for it. Even up to secondary school. In secondary school, we'd go to the library, but I'll be reading books written by Enid Blyton. I don't know if you know that author. And it's
Oh,
a
I know,
children's book.
it.
Yes. So when my teacher would think that we're going to the library to read actual books, and then they'll be comparing, like, you guys should be like Evidence. I was going to the library to read books. I'm like, novel. I would go to the library, and my teachers would think that I was going there to study for my exam. But no, I was going there to look for the latest novel that had been added to the bookshelf, and then would ransack, check everywhere. I had a friend also who was crazy about books like I was, and then would ransack the whole library looking for books that we could read, but they were mostly Western novels. We were not reading African literature. The only thing that I would consider close to African literature we were reading was they were very, very tiny. I would not even call them novella. No, it was like big fonts and then like 20 to 30 pages. Yeah, those kind of things.
The
Those
road
were
to
the
the road to Babbage, Chicken and the River, and
not even Chicken and the River. Not really. Those ones that were
Sugar
badly
Girl.
written. Yes, badly written. Emphasis on badly written. In fact, there was
Well,
one that was trending at the time.
okay,
Take Me
like
Home. Yes. So those were what we were reading. So I would say that it was mostly because of what I got exposed to, the books that were available closest to me. And those were books my brother had. And yeah, that was how I got to reading Western literature more than African literature.
Now, at the current situation and where you find yourself, you are now considered a book critic. Just within the short span of time you came into the scene to start doing reviews. How do you source your books? Where do you source your books? Do you go to Roving Heights? Do you go to Adam's Page? Where do you get your books, and how expensive are books in Nigeria?
Very good question. Very, very good question. Important question too. I used to get I get my books from Roving Heights. But the books there are expensive. I'm not blaming them. The books are expensive. And then sometimes I'll buy books and start thinking, because I don't want to say depressed, but then when you buy 2 books for 30,000 naira, I got Shigidi for I think I got Shigidi for 12,000 naira or so. And then after buying it, I was thinking that, God, so this one is God. There was a particular time when I just got into this literary space. I used that time, since I think it was 2 years ago, things were not this bad economic wise. I had only, I think I got 10,000 naira. There's this guy in my school, my faculty precisely. There's this guy that is close to us. He stays on the ground floor. He sells books, and the guy really, really helped me because his books are cheaper. You cannot compare roadside food sellers to food sellers that are in the restaurants, yeah. So it was that kind of disparity. So it helped me because his books were cheaper, although still expensive, but it was cheaper, relatively cheaper. So I could afford it. And at that time, I used all my money. I'm actually serious. I used my last 10K to buy books. I was not thinking. I don't know what possessed me at that time, but I used all my money to buy books. And I was in school. So after I got those books, I was broke. I didn't even have money to eat or whatever. It was my friends that sustained me throughout the week until I was able to get money. So buying books in this country is really tough. I will not even lie. Sometimes you just take, when you even take 30,000 naira, you you'll be able to buy 4 or 5 books at most. You cannot buy books. Books are expensive. I get from Roving Heights, I get from Book O'Clock, I get from the guy I mentioned. Yes. So, and books are really, really expensive. In fact, you have to be intentional. People have to save up to buy books. Is that bad? It is that bad. So yeah, books are expensive.
Well, it all started with a post on X. As people were trying to recap on their year, and a particular user on X, Ezio Makalu, put up a post where she said, this year I read 150 books. I smashed my 2 years record. That's reading records. I also taught myself Korean from absolute beginner to intermediate level. And As I speak, this particular post has gotten over 1 million impressions and lots of comments. So this morning we thought, hey, how about we bring that user to you on the show this morning? We're joined by Asia Makalu, writer and book influencer. She joins us via Zoom from Enugu. Asia, good morning. Welcome to the Morning Brief.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here.
Well, I know you've gotten a lot of commendations, backlash, doubts, and all of that. So let's just start with the elephant in the room. Did you really read 150 books? If you did, how did you read them? What was the volume of the book? I can go on and on, but you get the whole shindig. This is something you've gotten for days now, Ejima.
Of course, I read 150 books in 2024. And how I did it, I just read every day. Every day, I make a conscious effort to read books. When I wake up in the morning, my routine is normally I'll pray, and then after praying, I'll read. I have an app on my phone, BB app. I use it to read, and I also use it to listen to audiobooks. Then I'll read maybe 1 chapter, maybe 2 chapters, maybe 3 chapters. And one thing people fail to understand is some people are fast readers. I am a fast reader. I read from my phone, and then I set my day. While doing my chores, I can listen to audiobooks. I'm listening to audiobooks, the narrator is narrating the stories to me, and I'm doing my chores. And then during the day, I can just find a time to read my paperbacks. I read books of 400 pages, 300 pages, 200 and something pages. And there's something I do. After each book that I read, I review them on my social media platform. I would write something like, my first book of the year is blah, 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 blah. I review it. So I use social media to track my readings. So whenever people tell me, whenever people ask me, are you sure you read this book? Are you sure this? Are you sure that? I'm always taken aback because the track record is there. You can always check my social media platforms. So to answer your question, yes, I read 150 books in 2020.
Miss Kalu rather has been on the internet for some time. You know,
That's
people
like
have been
bookish
saying
is your
different stuff.
year.
Each year, it's like something we get to our way. Yeah. It's each time things get to come at the end of the year. It's something like I ordinarily get to expect. I'm just waiting to like, what's her reading list? What has she read this time around? And then I just want to see the whole idea of it's not possible. I like that particular part of people coming to show their ignorance on the internet. It's not possible. You can't read such amount of books on the go. How does that, when you see comments like that, how do you get to feel? How do you get to respond? Do you just smile the way I do, or you like having this righteous anger within you?
On Twitter last year, December period, when people were commenting trash, they were trash talking Bookish Ezioma's, they were trash talking on Bookish Ezioma's post. I went through some. At that time, I was angry, and I even responded to 1 or 2, but I deleted my comment later.
On the one hand, your story is inspiring because it just touches at the heart of our society, learning, education. And we decided to have this conversation to encourage people, really. Reading is not just for the fad. It's not just for, I read books. There's actually learning when you read. You learn from people's experiences. It expands your vocabulary, helps your critical thinking. Reading is actually, and that's why notice lots of leaders are readers. I think there's a saying, it's almost like cliche, but that's what it is. So we wanted to spotlight your story, encourage people, also help people know that they can reach that goal of reading 1 book per month if you were able to do 150 in a year. But let me touch on this very interesting topic because I saw comments. People were saying, a woman, they read 150 books. How will you find husband? I mean, I'm sure you've seen those comments. How did you respond to that, really?
Okay, this is not something that is new to me. I've been trending for 3 years now for reading many books, and comments like that, I'm used to them. For that particular one, I want to say something, and it's about the internalized misogyny and the preconceived notion that a woman has to have a man before the woman becomes something. And that is why I am here to say that women, we need to decenter men from whatever plans we have. You are your own separate entity. You can be whoever you want to be. You can do whatever you want to do without having a man at the back of your mind. I think this is something that has always been there, but we should fight the status quo. This is something that has always been there. When women accomplish something, people try to pull them down. People try to make them to crumble, to shrivel, to be under the shadow. But no, we need to decenter men. I am a woman, and if I want to read 200 books in a year, I will do that because I am my own person. And if I am achieving something, I am achieving it as Ezioma Carol, and not Ezioma, someone that is under the shadow of a man. So this is a wake-up call to everybody, to women especially. You can be whatever you want to be. You can achieve whatever you want to achieve. And you don't need a man's validation. You don't need people to attach you to a man. You are your own person. So anything you want to do, start today. Decenter men from your plans. And you can achieve whatever you set your mind to. So that's my response to comments like this. I don't center myself around men or my success. I don't attach it to men or to any other person apart from Ezioma Carol. I am the person that read 150. And I am the person that owns the success and the accomplishment.
So yeah, I think I'm more of I'll just scroll, look at it, laugh, and shake my head and move on. Because it just speaks of ignorance.
If you were to advise people on how to, they may not be able to go 200 or as many books as you've read, 150 and all of that. Some are even struggling to read one book in a whole year. What will be the best advice you give to them as we wrap up?
Okay. The best advice I'll give to them is read at your pace. You do not need to read 150 books or 30 books in a year. You just need to find your own pace and read. You can read a page a day, a chapter a day. The most important thing is that you're reading. And stories are important because they shape us and they make us more empathetic. They teach us about human nature. So I would advise people, if you want to learn, you cannot say that you have lived in this life. You don't have stories. If you do not interact with people, and you must know other people's stories. Stories shape you. They teach you how to live your life. So you can start by reducing your screen time. I was lucky to be born in a generation where there was no internet, so we read so much growing up. But now, this generation, there is internet. And it is unfortunate that the internet can be a two-edged sword. It can be used to kill, it can be used to build. So in a world where there are so many distractions, each trying to gain your attention, you can make a conscious decision to allocate a specific time of the day for you to read. When you are reading, you are enriching yourself, all parts of your being.
So, projection. People are projecting. They cannot read 100 books. So they project it to you that you too cannot read 100 books. Do you get? So if I cannot read 100 books, you cannot read 100 books. So they'll just tell you, it's not possible because it's not possible for them. So it's not possible for you as well. So people are projecting too. It's just another thing is insecurity. You're feeling like because I'm not able to read this, I will not feel bad. So because I don't want to feel, everything is just psychological. Because I don't want to feel bad, I have to make you feel bad for reading those books. Do you get? So that I just look at it and I just scroll most of the times. Let them continue wallowing in their ignorance.
She got lots of accolades. She appeared on TV and
even got interviews.
Our Obi, Madam Obi got to congratulate. Yeah, she got interviews and stuff like that. And I know she's having a whole lot of stuff down there. With the hike in the price of books, so in your first essay this year on your Medium account, you talked about you almost not getting to buy any book so that you get to finish at least the 25 or so books you have that you didn't touch last year. What drives you to go get more books, considering the fact that books are that expensive? Because Obi now then where recently the Nigerian author posted something on his social media handle complaining about what it cost him to get the books he got. I lived in Nigeria for pretty much for a very long time, and I know how expensive it was to get books. What keeps you going? What's your reaction? What's the reaction of your parents to you getting books? Because I know for me, my uncle, one of my uncles didn't just understand the whole idea of me always wanting to get books. And it's like, they're expensive. Why do you have to get them? Is it a matter of priority, or is it just a thing you cannot help than get books? Or is it something you are saying, okay, think it's better to get books than to just use my money and flex?
Okay, you asked what my parents think. I think that the person that acts as a parent in that particular aspect is my twin sister. So there are some times when I'm like, okay, I have this money, I
Okay.
want to buy books. And she's like, what books? The ones that you have you finished it? She understands how it is getting books, but then she's the police. So she's the one that tells me that there are sometimes it just happens. I see this book on Instagram. Oh my god, I want to get it, I want to get it, I want to get it, and I see a book somewhere else. I'm like, okay, I want to read this book. So it happens that I don't even think about it. I just want to go and get the book. But she's the one that is always calling me to order. Like, see, these things are very expensive. If you want to get it, you have to. So my sister does this thing that I really, really envy, and I think it's a good practice. She sets herself up for tasks, and when she does those tasks, she awards herself. So she tells me, okay, you want to buy books here, then you have to do something so that you'll be able to merit buying those books. Don't just go and buy books. Do something, attach something to it. So you'll be like, I'm attaching something to it. I'm telling myself, when I complete those 25 books, I'm going to go and get books, like lots of books. So I'm just waiting. So when I got now to my parents, how they react, they know they've always known that I love books. So it's not really, and as long as it's not their money, they're also good. Like, okay, you're an adult, use your money to buy the books, use your money to buy what you like. But when I got my bookshelf, I remember when I got my bookshelf, hey, my father came into the room and he was like, so why did you go and get a bookshelf? Is that the most important thing in your life right now? And I do not know how to explain to him that, sir, this thing is very important. This bookshelf that you're looking at, he was like, you could have bought other things. You went to buy bookshelf. Why bookshelf? And I could not talk because let me not go and say something. I will implicate myself. I was just keeping quiet and looking because I did not know how to explain to him that you understand that this thing is actually important right now. So yeah, there's still that whole. But I like that, especially my mom. I like that she's understanding. She'll just come and tell me, "All this your book self where they read now. So book. You know, no another thing. I only book today read." I like that she understands, and my dad understands to an extent. Maybe he thinks that I'm an adult, so I can handle things on my own. I like that. I like that allowance. So, but on the part of buying books, and sometimes you just
Wow.
wake up
Wow.
and you're controlled by whatever forces you want to go and get books. I have my twin sister. She's always there telling me that, sister, you don't have all the money in the world. So if you want to get books, you have to work for it. So yeah, that's it.
What makes for a good book for you at the moment? Because you reviewed a whole lot of stuff. You reviewed Chidoziem's Lost is an Aftertaste of Memory. You've reviewed Abubakar's Incredible Dreams and a whole lot of stuff. How do you get to select what you get to read? I know the last time we were talking, you were just finishing Wale Soyinka's work. That was, I think, November last year. And
Yes, it
how do you
was.
pick books you read? And then how do you pick books you also get to how do you also pick books you get to review, and do you have any criteria you get to look out for in reviewing stuff, or you just go about reviewing stuff? And because you review very well, also it shows in the different stuff you've done. The beginning of the end, I think the one you participated with Ugochukwu last year and different stuff like that. How do you go about this?
First off, I have a couple of friends that are in the literary space. I have a number of them. I have Chinonso. Nonso is always recommending books for me, by the way. I like Nonso's reading taste a lot. Even though sometimes he reads, sometimes I'll see the book that I'm like, Chinonso, what is this again? Chinonso reads anything and everything. So at the time, I asked him for recommendations. I also use trusted authors.
For a review such as Loss is an Aftertaste of Memory, what impression do you get from Michael's coming of age novel, and what do you think we should be expecting from such an author like him? Michael is someone I read everything he writes, and he's an intelligent writer. At least that's what I would say. You are the reviewer. I don't want to do your job. I think he's an intelligent writer, and I think it matters that somebody is intelligent, someone has levels of emotions added to them being a writer, because there are writers you find just writers without levels of intelligence. I think he's both smart and he's both intelligent. So what do you make of his book?
Chidoziem's book is the first thing that comes at me when I think of this book is nostalgia. That book, there are books that you read that leave lasting impressions on you. And I'm not just saying it now because we're friends. I'm saying it from a place of, yes, this is the truth. His book left a lasting impression on me. And that's one thing that I consider that's one thing I look out for when I'm reading books. For instance, when I was reading, I like memoirs a lot too because they also leave lasting impressions. When I read Wole Soyinka's memoir, You Must Set Forth at Dawn, when I read Chinua Achebe's
Sure.
There Was a Country, those memoirs just, you cannot forget them. You experience those, right? You experience those writings. You experience the stories that they are painting, the stories that they are telling to you. So when I read Loss is an Aftertaste of Memories, it was the same thing. I still can imagine myself in Nosike's shoes because everything that he painted, he wrote with so much, not just intelligence, but he wrote from a place of, he understands how brittle memories are, and he was careful about it in presenting it to the readers, in presenting it to his readers. He knew how important childhood memories are, and it doesn't, how would I put it now? The way you write is very, very careful. Almost like, okay, I don't want to,
Yeah.
like when you're holding an egg. That's how I feel like our childhood memories are, because we are very want to forgetting those memories. But when we remember those parts, we always look back and we smile. So Chiedozie was conscious of this in his writing. So he writes as though he were carrying an egg. That's how I think everybody's, in fact, not just childhood memories now this time, but memories in general. That's how I think they should be handled with care, and we see that play out in his book as well. And that's one thing that stands out for me the most, the way he's able to evoke feelings, especially that feeling
Yeah.
of nostalgia. You can feel it. So yeah, that's what. And Chiedozie is a very, very intelligent writer. Even as moving away from the writer, as an intelligent person, you have conversations with him and you're like, okay,
Sure.
this person is well read. And then he reflects in his writing, of course, because you cannot take the intelligentsia from the writer. So
Definitely.
yeah, intertwined.
Moving
Yeah.
forward, or like trying to wrap up also, what are the challenges you face in Nigeria as it concerns you, not just being a book reader, a book lover, also a book critic, a reviewer, and all that? We've talked about the challenges of sourcing for books and the cost of books. But beyond the spectrum of the cost of books and the little stuff we've talked about before, how do you balance time and how do you survive in this T-Pain's government?
Hey, important question. So most of the times it has to, it takes, I don't know why. I don't even want to generalize now, but it's a lot. I've been doing book reviews. In fact, I did not start book reviews to make money from it. I knew that there were other ways. There's ghostwriting, there's other ways, but I just did it because of passion. But T-Pain economy is telling me that you cannot do this thing just because of passion. You have to think about the money that is also. But yeah, I think that another a major challenge is remuneration, right? People do not. I love what the Republic is doing, by the way. The Republic is making what you write, making writing worth the while. Yeah. But then you still have to, in fact, generally as a writer, writers are mostly a short change. Writers are usually underpaid because, I mean, it's not just writing. I wish writing was like TED. Do you get? Where you just do something and then the pay is always massive. But then in writing, there's always too much work to do, and then the pay at the end of the days, it's not even it at all. It has to now it has to come from a place of, oh, I love doing this thing for you to actually keep writing. There are sometimes I want to, and there's also the issue of, other than that, there's also the issue of, there's the imposter syndrome too, right? So there are sometimes I want to write a review and I'm sitting down. I like to read. I read reviews written by other people because, I mean, you can always say one or two from them, right? So when I want to write, I'm always thinking, what if my writing is not even as good, or So you have to battle down. But essentially, how I survive in this stipend economy is most of my 70% of my earnings don't come from my book review, except in cases where I participate in competitions and I win. And that's like the only major deal breaker about writing reviews. But other than that, most of it doesn't come from writing reviews. I write reviews because I love to write reviews, not even because of the pay. So that's how most times I'm not really concerned about how much is I'm getting through this. I'm just happy that I'm able to write, put myself out there, and people read my works and come back to say, "Oh my God, I like how you write this. This was so profound, intelligent, brilliant." Those kind of things. It makes me happy. But moving away from that, mostly the works I do is not from my earnings are not from book reviews. And that's another challenge now, because the time I spend doing what will get me more money, it's into the time I used to write book reviews. That's why sometimes I see that I'm dragging. I've read 5 books. I've only written review about one. I've only reviewed one. I've not reviewed the rest because there's no time. So that's another challenge. While it's not what is getting me money, like most of my money, there's still the challenge of how to balance your work with
Wow.
writing reviews. But essentially, girl has to survive. So reviews
Wow.
will be fine. I'll write reviews when I write. You will read it when you see it.
Wow, that's a lot.
So
It's
yeah.
a challenge of living in Nigeria and living in a place like that. And for those who still find it difficult to, come to that consciousness, sometimes also we also have to be grateful for the fact that we became conscious of reading and writing. Some persons don't even have the opportunity to come to that particular place. I know you are doing something in Lagos at the moment. You're starting a community and you're working. Can you just run us through that for like a minute or two? What is this community about? What's the name? Why did you start that? And what's your ambition? And what are the expectations you want to get to see from such a community?
Okay, so sometime last year, I think February, I was just working at my school. I was just taking a walk, and then I wasn't even thinking about anything crazy. I wasn't thinking about anything. I was just taking a walk to clear my head. And then it hits me that they are not, we have so many writers in uni, like, that are recognized globally. I'm talking about the likes of
Sure.
Chilon Sonze. There are a whole lot of them, Naomi, there are a whole lot of them. And it just hits me that we don't have one umbrella that houses these writers and readers too. It's just when we go out for events that we meet, like, I'm also in Unilag, I'm also in Unilag. So that just got me thinking that what if the ones we have reading community, we have book clubs in Unilag, but they are mostly lecturers. Lecturers are the ones that own it. So you will not compare it to having a community that is run by students. I am in one and we are not so free. I mean, there's the fact that, oh, my lecturer is here. Let me not go and say something now that will make my lecturer to be angry or something like that. So I just thought that what if we have a community that is only run and managed by students? And then I spoke with Chinonso, I spoke with Ugo, I spoke with Joachim, I spoke with Ali, and then we decided to bring this community to life. So the major aim I have for this community is to make reading fun and to also be an umbrella for students interested in the literary space, literary community. And the dream is very big, but yeah, we want to establish it in universities across Nigeria, but we're starting with Unilag because that's where I am. That's where we all are. So that's just it, to encourage. You would be shocked that for a university as popular as the University of Lagos, we do not have a single literary community that brings everybody together. No, everyone is just scattered here and there. So that's the aim of Literay, to unite readers and writers to create a literary community, which is a safe space, and to encourage readership and, groom in our own way writers, next generation writers. So yes, that's all about Literay. Yeah, the name is Literay.
I hope your dreams come true. I hope you get to succeed in the things you do. I hope we get to see more come from this place. They say the reward for hard work is more work. We are not going to let you go unless you bless us with more work. So the same way Jacob told the angel, I will not let you go unless you bless me. And we we hope that you don't allow the situations in the country get to pull you down. These are the challenges we also would have to look at in the coming months, in the year. And I also will be engaging with writers and creative and, will I say, politicians, so to say, if they allow themselves to be interviewed, let us have this conversation and let them see where we ordinarily need their help, because there are policies that ordinarily should be guiding publications, that should be guiding publishing and all that, and making things quite easier for books to be cheaper, because the amount you called in the amount you call the ones you used to go get stuff is, it's higher than people's minimum wage. I was talking with my mom yesterday, and she was telling me about some schools that get to pay teachers 15K as salaries in a month. In the part where she finds herself currently, there are some schools that pay 30K. I know you're in Lagos, so it's like I understand that also, but there are places that still pay teachers 20, 30,000 naira. These teachers have families, and we also have to like look at how professors get to treat students in schools in the coming months, and because these things are all connected, and we ordinarily also have to see to it that we really come to look at real time issues. You're young, you are doing your stuff. We appreciate the work you're doing, and we hope to see more of your stuff. And if you're not following her, she'll be tagged on this video. The links to our social media account will be tagged here. You can get to follow and see the amazing stuff she's doing, from Medium to the different reviews she has come to put out there. And we know we don't have time at the moment because duty calls and student life gets to call. We hope, and we've had a conversation backstage to see how we bring Miss Evidence back, and she's accepted to come again. I think then we'll have more time to get to talk about a lot of other stuff. So you can find her work from places like Afro Critic. She has a Medium account where most of her reviews are, and I'll put as many links as possible to her previous reviews, where you can get to see the amazing work she's doing within the limited resources she has as a Nigerian who has refused to give up the idea of buying books. Please don't go broke, but don't stop buying books also. I have been your host for today's conversation. I hope you've not had a boring conversation, because that's what people normally ask me. Why is it boring conversations? I'm like, it's nothing boring, but it's just the idea that some persons will just look at what we are doing now and say, what are these people talking about? They're talking about some boring stuff. So it's what we are trying to do down here in this platform is having those boring conversations and prove to people indeed that they are not really boring. My name is Biringkpa bin Mecca. We have been speaking with evidence, and you would also come to believe from the evidence of our conversations that, Nigeria needs a lot. The people need to come to know about, reading about, writing about the different things they ordinarily should come to think about and should come to do, and the ways ordinarily life should ordinarily go. Literature is still a thing that needs redemption. The politicians have to come together and decide ordinarily how things ordinarily should go. Women cannot be abused the way they are abused, and everybody just wants to sweep it under the carpet. It doesn't make sense. We're in the 21st century. And as our guests have said, just let women be. Let women be. Let them just be who they ordinarily are supposed to be. Human beings, devoid of all the shortcuts we try to play with them and how we ordinarily want them to come to accept themselves. Women should be women, and it is important that we come to realize that particular fact. Books are expensive in Nigeria. The publishing industry in Nigeria still needs a whole lot of engagement. People need to really do a whole lot of things down there to see to it that things come out and work out well. And government has to be at the forefront of championing this particular situation. Young people also have to come out of their problems, and their desires for worldly things also have to be checked, and their minds also have to be redirected to a thing like literature to emancipate them, to give them the necessary freedom they ordinarily deserve, the necessary freedom they need as a people. because just keeping quiet and hoping that things will go well would not indeed go well. People need to be told what they are supposed to do. People need to be shown what they ordinarily are supposed to do. And people need to be given the freedom to ordinarily do the things they ordinarily are supposed to do at the time they need to do them for the greater good of our world. Because in the long run, it is you and I who get to suffer the whole problem. It is you and I who get to suffer from the different levels of we feeling insecure because we ordinarily will come to live in a society where we have fewer and fewer persons who have critical minds and ways of thinking because books were so expensive and so out of their reach, and their life will just continue to go on that way, and it doesn't make sense for anybody, doesn't make sense for you, doesn't make sense for me, and we shouldn't admire living in such a country. We should want to live in a country where, it is more important to us to live life the way we ordinarily are supposed to live life. And so you see this in our conversations, and it makes sense that we're having these conversations. You should be able to follow her through all the links we put in the description of this particular video, and you should come to engage her work day by day and come to engage her in the different things she gets to do and how she ordinarily gets to lead her life, and try to see to it that a thing like literature doesn't die in our world. There are lots of Nigerians reading, or what they are reading ordinarily are not the things they're ordinarily supposed to read. But what do you expect from them? They can only read what they are given to read. They can only read what is available to them. People have to read because people should read. The world cannot make sense of itself without literature. The world cannot make sense of itself without granting itself the chance to think of a utopia or a dystopia, and how ordinarily we should ordinarily relate with these things and with ourselves. In and about these are the things that make up our conversations today. I've been your host, Biringkpa Emeka, and I have been in conversations with Evidence Egwuono Adjarho. See you next time. If you do like this video, please like, comment, and share, because it matters that we have these conversations that ordinarily seem boring, but are not. I'm your brother, the mendicant, strolling through this world with you. See you next time.